Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here in front of people live. I'm starting with a photo of my daughter's 14th birthday party. It's a far cry from the year before when I hired a van and a driver, and with Drake blaring, took 15 teenage girls screaming at the top of their lungs to an overpriced and underwhelming hibachi dinner. In this photo, we are 2 months into COVID, and already any semblance of a gathering seemed like a distant memory. So I decided to surprise her with 5 friends out front in our front yard, behind the fence. I covered the lawn with confetti, put balloons at each post to designate 6 feet, and I left masks, homemade masks, as party favors. I took her by the hand, I blindfolded her, took her by the hand, and when I stepped outside, I had to pause. I was so overcome with emotion and in awe of what she was about to encounter. The smiling teenage faces of her friends, coupled with teary-eyed moms holding homemade birthday signs, and this year singing happy birthday instead. They showed up. You know that feeling. That feeling when someone really shows up for you. It's kind of a combination of surprise, delight, and gratitude. It's visceral. You can't touch it, you can't see it, you certainly can't measure it, but it's there because you feel it. It's a sense of meaning. Meaning, when defined subjectively, is situational, defined by our experiences, our emotional states, and our circumstances. As meaning-making and meaning-seeking creatures, we apply meaning to everything in our lives. It's how we interpret the world. Throughout COVID, there was this type of meaning-making that was made manifest as we realized how tightly linked our fates really were. And the duality of our human nature played out right in front of us in real time. There was isolation and loneliness and virtual dance parties, human rights issues and rallies and marches, drive-by birthday celebrations, and profound loss. We realized and were forced to shift away from what we own and what we do to who we are and how we show up. COVID reacquainted us with our higher value as humans and made tangible the meaning that is significant in our life. COVID may have disrupted our lives, but it reconfigured our values. Now, I normally make a big deal about birthday parties in general because I think my mother always made a big deal about them for me. Until my 10th birthday, when all I got from her was a Holly Hobby card signed Love Mom. What I realized later on was that it was probably the least generic card she could find in the hospital gift shop that November morning of my birthday, en route to being admitted for cancer that was newly diagnosed. She died a little over a month later, that Christmas Eve. I got a crash course in something you don't really get until much later in life, a defining moment that split my life into 2. But I derived a deeper meaning and a sense of appreciation for life, an ability to live in the moment because I knew it was uncertain. My relationships became meaningful in different ways, and I developed a profound empathy for others. My values were reconfigured. COVID was our collective crash course, a defining moment in our culture when we were reacquainted with our higher values. It split our life in 2, and we also gained greater appreciation for the lives that we had, insight and wisdom from the loss, and definitely a level of empathy that was almost palpable at times. Paul Tillich, who was a German-American philosopher, said that suffering introduces you to yourself and reminds you that you are not the person you thought you were. Well, at 10 years old, I was introduced to a motherless girl who went from taking everything for granted to understanding the fragility of life. As we are coming out of our COVID pandemic and emerging from this collective trauma, who have we been introduced to? I began thinking about this more and more as I started my thesis journey in the middle of lockdown for my master's in business for social impact and sustainability. I was inspired by the meaning making that was emerging out of this trauma, and so I decided to research it as my topic. I wanted to show that meaning wasn't some abstract concept, but rather a relative symbolic value, that just because you can't see it, or sometimes there's not even a name for it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. A feeling, an aesthetic, showing up. Unfortunately, my topic was rejected by my IRB board for being too abstract. I was told that I needed to ground it in something more tangible to give it context. I was even asked, what exactly do you mean by meaning? So I developed a framework of a progression of economic value, which I will get back to. I'm a futurist. I think about what's possible, and then I figure out how to get there. It's not necessarily about finding the right answer, but really asking the right questions. And to me, uncertainty is opportunity. I was new to academia, and I didn't realize that it's kind of just based on an existing theory that you reject or support, and the evidence really didn't mean anything if it wasn't peer reviewed. It was the opposite of the divergent thought and the possibility that I was involved with in my own work. I thought that COVID was enough of a guarantee, enough of proof to show my hypothesis. All the rules had been broken. We didn't have time for longitudinal studies or peer-reviewed research. We had to act on the moment now to focus on how our future was going to unfold. So I proposed this framework for progression of economic, based on Joseph Pine's progression of economic value, loosely, to show that I believed we were moving from trading in the tangible, market-driven value of extrinsic values to a more intangible, intrinsic, and relative type of value. So as such, it necessitated a more generative system, less transactional, one that was concerned with a return on impact, not just a return on investment. One that would look at money as a means, not just an end. But I quickly learned that just as business is biased towards the visible, academia is biased towards the facts. But what I learned in my research is that us humans, we're biased towards meaning. It defines our sense of value. So what if meaning could become our cultural currency? Now, a currency is generally something that's accepted and prevalent. A cultural currency has the ability to make an impact, shares a new perspective, or a new kind of idea. With the cultural currency of meaning, we could focus on community and collaboration, not just consumption, value that's relative, not just a set metric or a set price, and driven by community, not just market-driven by individuals. But I realized we were already trading in this cultural currency of meaning in COVID, every day of our lives. The way my daughter's friends showed up despite the lack of fancy or fun party. The rallies and the marches against racism and social injustice. The way our schedules were suddenly empty, and it enabled us to finally show up for our lives. This is who we were introduced to. But can we keep showing up? I believe that we can, and I see possibility in what's unfolding in the culture at large, like this brand, Maduka Yoga, who's partnered with a Van Gogh museum in a collaboration on a capsule collection inspired by 3 of his paintings that he did while suffering depression and in a treatment center. By capturing his humanity and acknowledging his vulnerability, they have brought higher meaning to their product and thereby their people that buy it. Virtual currencies have a lot of potential as well. The social value that you can get from an NFT, the symbolic value that moves beyond the visible into another dimension, can make cultural currencies tangible. Social tokens are like buying stock in people and communities that you believe in and that you want to support. Miami coin is a great example of this. The mayor of Miami has established the Miami coin, and he feels that it's going to revolutionize the way that his community can contribute to societal needs and help other people. And decentralized finance, DeFi, is addressing income inequality and by offering services to niche populations of the underbanked. Acorn for investing, Chime for savings, and so on and so forth. So there is potential if we change the systems, and we have that ability. Professor Mohammed Yunus, a Nobel Peace Prize winner for founding the Grameen Bank and really pioneering the concepts of microfinance and microcredit, has a call to action saying that we created our economic systems. God didn't create it. We can change these systems, and I believe we can as well. Our individual meaning in life may be shaped by our families of origin, our culture, and the systems in which we grew, but what is meaningful to us as individuals has the power to shape those very systems as well. COVID disrupted our lives. It reconfigured our values. It reminded us that we're not the people we thought we were. So who have you been introduced to? Thank you.